Looks like we're still waiting for one or two more commissioners to join us. Adrian, just let us know when you're ready. I think we still have a couple people we're waiting on.
Lisa, we're just waiting for Commissioner Yearsley.
Perfect, thanks. It looks like we're already live on YouTube, so I'll just say we're waiting for one of our commissioners to join us so we have a quorum, and then we'll get started here in a few minutes. So thanks for being patient. Commissioner Seal, thanks for being our eyes and ears over there.
My pleasure.
Andrea or Adrian, do you want me to run through kind of the introduction for the evening while we're waiting for? Oh, it looks like he's just jumped on.
Yeah, we need a quorum. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we could do the intro or not first.
And we are ready when you are, Madam Chair.
Great. Welcome, Commissioner Yearsley. Thanks for joining us. Good evening to everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission for November 5th, 2020. We are doing a joint virtual and in-person meeting. So thanks to Commissioner Seal for being there in person for us, while some of the other commissioners are here on Zoom. On your screen, you should see commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting, as well as some of our staff are at City Hall, including the city attorney, our city clerk's office, and some of the staff from our planning department as well. Everybody else that is participating, there might be some of you at City Hall, but others might be on Zoom, and you can observe the meeting. We will be able to see that you're here, but your ability to talk and be seen will be muted while the meeting is happening. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you'll be unmuted and able to comment. If you previously sent in a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen during the time you're called, and the clerk will run that presentation for you. And they can also assist with bringing up a slide from another presentation if you need it, so just go ahead and ask. If you're just attending and want to watch the meeting, you're certainly welcome to just watch on the city's YouTube channel, which is at meridiancity.org/live. And we will open up each item individually and then start with the staff report. Staff will report their finding on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and uniform development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward and present their case and respond to any staff comments, and they'll have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant's finished, we'll open up the floor for public testimony and then give the applicant a chance to respond as well after that. Once public testimony is open this evening, the clerk will call the names of people who've signed up to testify on the website. You'll be unmuted at that point in time and we'll call on you individually. And remember to state your name and address for the record for us. And you'll have 3 minutes to address the commission unless you're representing a larger group like an HOA. After that time, we may ask you for any questions for clarification. Once you're done, they'll mute you again and you'll no longer have the ability to speak. Once all those who have signed up in advance are called, I'll invite any others who would wish to testify. And if you wish to speak on a topic, you may press the raise hand button in the Zoom app. You can wave at Commissioner Seal at City Hall, or if you're listening through a cell phone or landline, you can always press *9 to be unmuted and wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, make sure you mute those devices so that you don't experience feedback and everyone can hear you clearly. And we won't be able to take questions until the public testimony portion. So if you have a process question during the meeting, you can always email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they'll attempt to help you address the question as quickly as possible. So with that, we'd like to call the meeting to order officially and we'll start with a roll call. Madam Clerk, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner McCarville,
Here.
Commissioner Seal,
Here.
Commissioner Yearsley, Commissioner Yearsley.
I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Holland.
Here.
Absent are Commissioner Grove, Commissioner Fitzgerald, and Commissioner Casanelli.
Great, thank you. I'm just trying to get the agenda loaded back up here again. 1 second. Clicked too many things on my screen. We have a few items on the agenda tonight. The first is to adopt the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion passes. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is the approval of the October 22nd, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, we'll move on. Items moved from the consent agenda to action items. And the first item on our agenda is the public hearing for Oakwind Estates, Subdivision H-2020-0093 by Engineering Solutions on Black Cat Road. And we'll begin with the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Alan Tiefenbach, Associate Planner with the City of Meridian. This is a request for a preliminary plat and a development agreement modification. Let's see if I can get this to work for me here. So it's a preliminary plat for 94 single-family lots, 92 townhome lots, 26 common lots on just a little less than 25 acres. As I said, it also includes a modification to the existing development agreement, which designates the property for multifamily and self-storage. Give you just a bit of history on this. In 2008, this property received annexation approval for a large master planned residential development at the time called Oak Creek. In 2013, the subject property was rezoned to the R15 zone district as part of the Oaks North subdivision. So this 24.5 acre property is part of a much larger 295 acre property. So this subject property, as I mentioned, was approved for multifamily on the north side and self-storage on the south side. The self-storage was only to be customarily incidental to the residential. So it can't be a standalone self-storage as a primary use. It was only to serve the residents of that subdivision. The DA was amended at the time to allow this. In 2018, the multifamily portion of this property, about 16-something acres, was proposed to be rezoned to R8 to develop single-family detached. This was another amendment to the development agreement to remove that multifamily requirement. This went to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended approval, but it never made it to the council and since has been withdrawn. That said, the Oaks North plat and the DA for the Oaks North are what still governs this property. Here are the maps just to sort of show you. what it's recommended for in the future land use maps, medium density residential, zoned R15. This is the red lines represent properties that are being developed presently now, and yellow represents anything that's actively in hearing. So I'll talk a little bit about this plat. Again, as listed above, there's been several rezonings and DAs relating to this property, and it's part of the, as I said, the Oaks North Plat. Excuse me. The property is about 24.5 acres of the almost 300 acres north Oaks North Plat. The northern 17.5 acres is presently zoned to allow multifamily of between 8 to 15 dwelling units per acre. The southern 7, almost 8 acres is zoned to allow self-storage. This preliminary plat includes a new development agreement to allow single family. I'm going to use this one because I think it's easier to see this colored one. So this preliminary plat would include a development agreement to allow single family on the northern half and townhouses on the southern half. The single family, it would be on lots of approximately 3,000 to 5,000 square foot. The townhouses will be on lots of between 2,100 and 3,200 square feet. The proposed street network stubs 2 streets, Cherry Brook Drive, which is here, and West Daphne Street, which is here. And those connect to Trident, which you can see here. North Trident terminates up at the North Oaks and terminates down at McMillan to the west. This proposal would not provide direct access to the arterial, nor would it increase the number of access points to that arterial now. There are several internal roads, which you can see here is Avila and Milano. And also there's an alley that you can see here. So the townhouses are alley loaded. ACHD has commented that Marysville Street and Palestris, I think it's called, Avenue, that's these 2 streets here, are rather long, and they're recommending traffic calming for these streets. That's one of the conditions of approval. And when we talk about traffic calming, we're not saying speed bumps or road signs. ACHD is talking about things such as islands or narrowing it or doing more curves, design elements to actually slow down traffic on those areas. I want to mention that the staff report mentioned that the applicant would be required to construct curb and gutter along McMillan. However, it's later been clarified that McMillan's an arterial and curb and gutter is not required. Another thing I want to clarify is that there was some confusion between the preliminary plat and the landscape plan. The preliminary plat showed that there would be 5-foot sidewalks built along McMillan. The landscape plan scaled out to be 10-foot sidewalks. It's actually 5-foot sidewalks. And if you look to the Oaks north to the east, the sidewalks there are also 5 feet. So the sidewalks would tie at the proper width. Finally, I guess I want to mention that the UDC states that residential development along McDermott Road from Chinden to 84 is required to provide noise abatement, and that would be here. And that noise abatement would be by constructing a berm or a berm wall combination. It has to be at least 10 feet above the center line of McDermott Road. As a condition of approval, staff's recommending the applicant submit a landscape plan which meets those requirement prior to City Council. This development proposes 16, almost 17% of qualified open space. That's almost twice of what they're required to provide. This includes several grassy areas that are bigger than 50 by 100. That includes pathways. You can see one here. You can see pathways here. There are pathways running along here. There's pathways running along with the townhouses. There is also a central park, I guess you could call it, that includes like a outdoor picnic area. It also includes, let's see, hold on here. The applicants provided building elevations, which I'll show you here. These building elevations overall, staff thinks the quality is good, but we did have concerns with these elevations, in particular, the lengths of these roofs. If you look at this roof here We can start with that one. We believe that that roof should project across the home. We also had some issues with the length of the roofs of these townhouses. We thought that these roofs should be broken up better. If you look at our architectural standards manual, you'll see that you can't have roof lines longer than 50 feet without having some kind of variation in the roof plane. So that was our recommendation. We also believed that these little roof pitch elements that you see here should be carried around on the along the face of the townhouses. A condition of approval of the staff report was that the applicant revise these elevations prior to Planning Commission. I received some revised elevations today. This is what you'll see. Overall, I think staff supports the ones on the bottom. We still think the ones on the top should probably include some kind of elements above the garage door. We would prefer the roof or something like that be carried. If you look at the two on the bottom, we think that they did a very good job of that. There's the roof continuing across on the bottom left, and you can see they did like a exposed timber frame or a trellis type element above the garage door on this one. Moving along to the townhouses, they've since broken up these roofs. You can see how they've broken up the lengths of these roofs. We certainly like that. Similar to the elevations of the single family, we think that these little pitched elements or these overhangs, there should be something above the garage door, whether they want to do another overhang like that or whether they do some kind of exposed timber frame. We think there should be some added visual relief. It would be our recommendation, looking at these new elevations, that the Planning Commission consider that and add that as a condition of approval. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve this. We think that it includes less density than what was originally approved, but it still contains a diverse housing stock in terms of lot sizes, house sizes, and detached and attached housing projects. Also, the qualified open space and amenities as proposed exceeds the minimum requirements. The amount of open space is almost double what is required. It's central to the development, and there's numerous pathways integrated into and out of the development. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the City Council with the conditions as listed in the staff report. And we still believe that there should be conditions for more enhancements to the architecture on several of the houses as well as the townhouses. And I would entertain questions at this time.
Sorry, I was on mute. Any questions for staff from the commission?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Seal.
just a quick question on here on the staff analysis. It's a little confusing, and I think I understand essentially what's going on, but in the item B here, it says, however, since the development agreement applies to the entire Oaks North and South, of which this property is only a small part, staff believes it would be better to leave the existing DA as is and create a new development agreement for this property. So essentially that takes, what that's saying is take just this property out of the rest of the development agreement and leave that original development agreement alone.
Members of the Planning Commission, Madam Chair, that's correct. We would be removing this portion of the property out of the Oaks North Development Agreement, and this would be a new development agreement that would apply to just this property, the 24 plus acres.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Hearing none, I believe Becky is with us to talk on the application. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address to the record, we appreciate it, Becky. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Becky McKay, Engineering Solutions, business address 1029 North Rosario in Meridian. I'm here representing the applicant, BB Living, which is a division of Tolls Southwest. So the property that you're looking at is that northeast corner of West McMillan and McDermott Road. As staff indicated, there's approximately 24 and a half acres there. You can see the previous phases that we have designed, recorded, or have submitted final plats and designs to the city on. The project Oaks North is proceeding forward. Oaks South is completely built out now. And so in this corner, initially, what we had anticipated is based on the environmental impact study that was prepared by Idaho Department of Transportation for State Highway 16, Phase 2 and Phase 3. They had indicated that McMillan Road would go up over McDermott. And so we had initially, when this was planned back in 2008 and came through as a pre-plan in 2013, that we would have an overpass. And so we would have significant grade that McMillan would start rising. And so we proposed a use that we thought would be compatible with that, which would be mini storage that would service the Oaks development in its entirety. And then we had multifamily buildings on the remainder. Over the past few years, ITD has changed their plan and has submitted a new EIS to the feds. And they're going to have State Highway 16 go over the top of McMillan. So there will no longer be an overpass here. And initially, we had planned for a bypass of McDermott Road to come through our site. Then we had this significant amount of right-of-way allocated along north and south part of McMillan Road to accommodate it, and uses that would obviously would not be negatively impacted by the overpass. So we kind of had to rethink our plans because a lot has changed since 2008 and 2013. This is the property that you can see. This is a view of the property from the west boundary. As you can see, it's relatively flat. We have Jump Creek Subdivision to the east of us. They come off of, their access is off of Black Cat and off of McMillan Road. They have a collector that connects to us, extending out to Black Cat, aligning with the collector roadway in Bridge Tower West. This was the original preliminary plat that was approved in 2013 by the City Council. As you can see, we have, there it is. So we had this area that was going to be multifamily, R15, apartment type development. We did not have any specific site plan. It was just approved for a certain number of units. And then we had the, and then, how come I always lose the cursor, Bill? There it is. Then we had this mini storage here, and as you can see, here was the overpass as it started to increase in elevation. State Highway 16 is west of McDermott, about 300 feet. And I'm having technical difficulties. And then we had what we called the McDermott bypass, that then McDermott would terminate and then bypass that overpass. So obviously with the changes in the ITD plan, we had to rethink what was going to transpire. So this is what we came up with. And one of the things that was obviously a integral part of our Oaks North and Oaks South project was the fact that we would have diversity. Diversity in lot sizes, diversity in different types of home housing products. We had significant open space. We had pathways. And so we took a look at this and said, you know, what are we lacking as far as different product in the Oaks project? Townhomes were one. Secondly, were patio homes for like empty nesters on smaller lots. We had our garden product, we had our woodland product, we had our countryside product. And so we wanted to obviously add another dimension for the housing market in this project. This is the preliminary plat that you see right here. This is an overall colored rendering of what you see. So we kind of took the project. We have Trident, which is a collector roadway. So I have no direct access onto McDermott nor to McMillan. All of our access is on our internal collector roadway, Trident. The number of vehicle trips proposed within this development are less than what was anticipated and accounted for in the original traffic study that was done on the site back in 2013. Ada County Highway District indicated that a new analysis would not be necessary since we have been widening McMillan Road 17 feet from center line in both directions since we are north and south of McMillan. And we did construct a roundabout at our primary mid-mile continuous collector, Rustic Oak, which exceeded $1 million. And so that is has been constructed and is operational. So what we looked at, and we worked closely with BB Living and their architects, KTGY, who are specialists in this type of product, that the southern portion of the project that you see is townhomes. We wanted to have a mixture of front load and rear load so that we had differing elevations. We have mews incorporated in the project, and you can see that some of the units are along a mew. Some of them have front load. They all have garages. They all have 20 by 20 carports or car pads in front. And then we do have one 20-foot wide alley, so we have rear load. The primary entrance into the project is Daphne. So Daphne comes in right there off of Trident, and we do have detached 5-foot wide sidewalks along Daphne on both sides. So we have a nice soft entrance. That was a designated entrance, meets all ACHD standards. All internal streets within the project are proposed as public streets, including the alley will be a public alley. So we have a nice landscape detached sidewalk coming into the project. Our primary amenity is centrally located, and you can see that. I don't know where that arrow goes. There he is. You can see our central amenity located at that location. So it's easily available to all residents since we have pedestrian pathways that go both north and south within the project. And we have some pathways that go out to McDermott to the 10-foot pathway. So we have a significant amount of pedestrian interconnectivity. Up to the north of the project, we have the Creason Lateral, which was piped. There is a pathway along that Creason Lateral. It runs from McDermott and all the way through our project connecting to Jump Creek Subdivision, which is located on the far eastern boundary. Here's kind of a blow up of the amenity. What BB Living likes to have is a significant gathering place for their residents. They wanted to have a open lawn area and kind of a plaza area. This plaza area has playground equipment. It has an outdoor full kitchen. It has barbecue area. It has seating area. It has for eating like a covered shelter, and it also has kind of a conversation pit area where they have a fireplace. So they're big on creating a community network. And as staff indicated, we significantly exceed the minimum required open space under the ordinance with this development. One of the reasons that we've requested a amendment or revision of the development agreement is because the original development agreement that was tied to the overall project in 2013 said that the density within this area had to be a minimum of 8 dwelling units per acre. Our gross density with the project is 7.58. So we are under that 8 dwelling units per acre, which required that we modify the DA. Now, obviously, over the past 7 years, there have been ordinance amendments. Things have changed. Some of the conditions in the original DA we have already satisfied. So we are in agreement with staff to prepare a new DA for this 26 acres here, or 25 acres, sorry, so that it's site specific. And that's pretty standard when we have these older DAs trying to retrofit them. The code sections have changed, other items have changed, things that aren't applicable to this, but are applicable to other areas within Oaks North. So that's the reason the staff has requested that the commission provide a condition to do a new DA for this project. This is kind of an example. I had BB Living from some of their other projects that they build, California, in Arizona, Nevada. This is their specialty. This shows you kind of an example of their shelter that they like, and their plaza areas where they take great care to obviously make it inviting and landscaping. They have benches, they have picnic tables, they have a covered area. As you can see, here's an example of one of their outdoor kitchens. So they have barbecue areas, full kitchen areas. They kind of have a bar where the residents can gather. They're sheltered and can converse and obviously enjoy living in the project. This is another example where they have a plaza area. This one is not covered. It has barbecues, it has picnic tables, hard surface plazas, bike parking. So they want to obviously create an inviting environment for their residents. And here's an example of another project that they've done where you can see they have a central fire pit. They have the Adirondack chairs. They have landscaping and to bring people together to enjoy the living environment. We did get comments from the staff concerning our elevations. The architects have made some revisions. These are not the final product. These are drafts. We did not have a lot of time. Once we received the staff report, we realized that the staff had requested revised elevations prior to Planning and Zoning Commission, not prior to council. So therefore, the architects were under the gun to prepare these drawings. And so these obviously are breaking up that roof line in the townhomes where we have a continuous roof there. This kind of shows you another breakup where they're breaking up and changing and modulating that roof line. And you can see the same thing here. But like I said, these are a work in progress. And so the client is obviously considerate of staff's comments and cognizant of the fact that the design review standards for the multifamily townhome type buildings require modulation articulation. On the single family dwellings, I'll wrap it up. Single family dwellings, we've provided staff with some additional elevations, basically breaking up that, creating kind of a porch, a little bit of more of aesthetic pleasing garage orientation. And I'll stand for questions.
Thanks, Becky. Any questions for the applicant from the commission?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner Seal.
Just so I have a better understanding of the entire layout of the Oaks North and South, and this relates to the Rustic Oak as it traverses through multiple subdivisions, it looks like. How much of that will be completed before this segment goes in?
We had a meeting this afternoon with the developers of Prescott Ridge, Hubble Homes, to coordinate the timing of Rustic Oak. We have 8 phases within Oaks North that have construction plan approval. We have, I believe, 3 phases that are constructed and recorded. We have phases 4, 5, 6, and 7 that have been pre-conned and are underway. Rustic Oak was extended with phase 1, approximately 700 feet short of the south boundary of Prescott Ridge. And then they will build Rustic Oak all the way to Chinden. So we will have a continuous mid-mile collector, which was intended and on the master street map. Phase 8, which we do have construction plan approval, and they will begin construction in the spring and complete next year, will bring that collector roadway within, and the utilities within 300 feet of Prescott Ridge. And in the meeting we had with Mitch Armuth and Don Hubble this afternoon, they have agreed that if Toll will construct Rustic Oak up to that 300-foot point, then they will extend the sewer, the water, and the collector roadway up to their boundary. And then within their first phase, Rustic Oak will go clear to Chinden. I think everybody's on the same page. We also shared drawings, agreed on the transitioning of the lots because they had some attached product next to some of our larger countryside, bigger lots that are 11 and 12,000 square feet on our north boundary. And initially, when the preliminary plat was approved in 2013, the reason those lots were so large on the north boundary is we had like 15-acre and 20-acre parcels with an existing homes, and they wanted transitioning. So I did the transitioning and put our larger lots, our R4 zoning along the north boundary. But today we kind of worked with Hubble and Ryan Hammonds with Toll, and Mitch Armuth and Don Hubble all agreed on appropriate transitioning so that everybody was happy, and the timing of the collector roadway. So it appears that our phase 8 will be under construction at the same time as their phase 1. So that continuous collector will be built in 2021.
And when do you see the occupancy and build out for Oakwind Estates?
You mean for this project? We have it as 2 phases. We will begin construction plans here shortly, and I believe they anticipate trying to get obviously underway shortly after we obtain council approval and get the development agreement signed and recorded. Then that would allow us to then submit our final plat and construction plans. So they would like to be underway, I believe, this winter, and obviously paving their first phase in late spring, early summer, and then going vertical in the midsummer, late summer. And then they want phase 2 to be following shortly behind that. The staff has requested that we build all of our perimeter buffering along McMillan and McDermott with the first phase, and we are comfortable with that.
Okay, and the reason I've asked the questions is because of the remarks from ACHD in their final letter that are kind of pressing to have that Rustic Oak completed really before there's occupancy in here. That's, I mean, essentially that's what I read in the letter that they provided. So that's why I'm trying to kind of press for, is that going to be a reality?
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Seal, their intent was not that it be constructed prior to the occupancy in this development. I did attend via Zoom that ACHD meeting, and what Council or Commissioner Baker wanted to be assured that the collector roadway would be connected up to Prescott Ridge so that we could get the additional mid-mile collector established for the entire section to improve access for emergency vehicles and to obviously take the heat off of some of the intersections along the arterial, because we do have a continuous collectors going from McMillan to Chinden and from obviously from McMillan wrapping out to Black Cat, and then from Black Cat through Bridge Tower West, which I designed, going out to 10 Mile. There was no stipulation that our occupancies would be dependent on that being in place. It was a recommendation because that would be an off-site improvement and an exaction upon this project, because this particular project has 2 points of ingress and egress, and we do meet the fire department regulations. We will be sprinkling the townhomes, and according to my conversations with Joe Bongiorno, the single family dwellings will also require sprinklers because we are at the 5-minute response. And he indicated to me that even with the continuation of Rustic Oaks up to Chinden, it does not change the response time for Oakwind, but it does change the response time for Prescott Ridge. But we are, I think, Bill has been obviously pursuing that the developers get together and do this in unison. So that is what we're doing. We have come to an agreement, and I think that's a critical thing, that we don't stop 300 feet short of them. We will allow them to build that sewer and water on that 300 feet, and we will make up the gap when we design or build phase 8, which is designed and approved and ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Becky, one other question for you. On the southern side of the development where you've got the townhome, the more dense product, I think my biggest concern is about parking. I know a lot of times when we see these kind of things, and I know I saw a visual in the staff memo that showed where some parking areas would be kind of on the northern side of it. But I worry about that shared drive aisle, that kind of chunk that's in the middle there, that they don't really have a lot of extra parking, and you're going to end up having people parked in the alley or parked around there. Do you have any comments about parking or some of those shared drives?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, we did provide a parking plan for the staff because that is not a requirement, but it has been strongly suggested by the staff when we do have narrower lots or we propose townhomes. So all of our townhomes will have a 2-car garage. They will also have a 20 by 20 concrete pad. So we will be able to park 4 cars. And then we provided a parking plan which showed a significant number of additional parking areas available. Now, Daphne has no front-on housing, and we only showed parking on the south side of Daphne. So technically, you could park on the north side of Daphne. All of our streets are a full section, 33 feet from back to back, so we don't have any reduced street sections that would not allow parking. With those common drives, we did show the parking along the end blocks where guests could park. We have to sign those 20-foot wide common drives as no parking within those. I think we have between 3 and I think we have one that has 4 units on it. We tried to minimize those. It was just kind of difficult. We've reworked this site plan, both my staff and the architects, trying to minimize any of the joint driveways and trying to provide as much interconnectivity and parking as possible. As far as the single family lots, you know, those are patio homes. They'll have 2-car garages. They'll have a 20-by-20 pad. And then on-street parking will be allowed on both sides of the street. We don't have any, we have M-block buffers. So there's parking at the end of the blocks without blocking a driveway. So I think we've demonstrated that we can accommodate guests within the project. Trident is a collector. There will be no parking. There's no parking signs on Trident until such time as it goes north and we have front-on houses.
Thanks, Becky. Really quick, I'm going to ask Adrian. It looks like Commissioner McCarville got moved back to attendees. I think she had to call back in. If you wouldn't mind moving her back over to panelist.
Commissioner Chair, I'm trying, we're trying to work out a technical difficulty right now. I'm not able to move her over. So I'm trying to work out if she can log out completely and then try to log back in. If we want to wait for that for a second while we lose our quorum and then regain it. I'm fine doing that, but Rhonda, I can't get you back in. So we can try to do a fresh reboot with you if you want to hang up completely and try to get back in.
Yeah, I'll ask Andrea. Do we need to pause, Andrea, to have quorum?
It seems like it's taking a little bit longer than I initially thought, so I think we should take a break.
Okay. Sorry about that, Becky.
That's okay. One thing, Madam Chair, we did have 2 neighborhood meetings for the project. I had the first neighborhood meeting, I had 1 individual show up that had bought a home south of McMillan within our Oak South project. The second neighborhood meeting, I had 2 residents that lived over off of Black Cat. They seemed to be pleased with the project and were happy that we had eliminated the apartment component and had gone to townhomes and patio. So we did not
Thank you
have
for that.
significant opposition.
Gotta love technical difficulties. Thanks everyone for hanging in there with us.
And for the record, any delays are Bill's fault this evening.
It looks like we might have Commissioner McCarville back. All right, looks like we're back to having a quorum again. So welcome back, Commissioner McCarville. With that, is there any other questions for Becky before we open up to see if there's any public testimony?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
on your you stated earlier that in the development agreement, there was a requirement for 8 units to the acre. Is that the entire site or just the southern portion of this project?
No, sir, Madam Chair, that was just for the R15 multifamily areas that we had designated on the preliminary plat. We had 3 of them. And in that initial DA, it was just applicable to those R15 areas, that our minimum density would be 8.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Yearsley. Any other questions? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed in to testify?
Madam
And
Chair,
Becky will bring you back up in a minute.
excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm sorry, we do not have anyone signed in on this project.
Okay, if anybody is on the call and would like to testify, if you want to raise your hand on the Zoom panel or wave at Commissioner Seal and he'll let us know if there's anybody looking. It looks like it's pretty quiet at council chambers behind Becky, but seeing none. Becky, do you have any final comments you'd like to make?
No, ma'am, I think I've covered it all. I think we have a great project, and it's going to complement the Oaks North development and provide an alternative type of housing that we don't have. And the amount of open space and amenities is significant. This project stands on its own. These residents will obviously be able to use the pathways, clubhouse, pools that are within Oaks North and Oaks South as part of their amenities also.
Thanks, Becky. If there's no more questions for the applicant or for staff, can I get a motion to close the public hearing for Oakwind Estate Subdivision H-2020-0093 and move to deliberation?
So moved.
Good.
I've got a motion and a second, I believe, by Commissioner Yearsley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, none
Madam
opposed.
Chair,
Adrian, was that you?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you that prematurely. I'll
Nope,
let you
you're fine.
finish there and then I'll interrupt.
I think we have a motion and a second and all were in favor. So we've closed for deliberation, but what's up, Adrian?
Apologies. Commissioner Casanelli is joining us at 6:52 p.m.
Thank you. Welcome, Commissioner Casanelli. You're just in time for comments. You want to go first? I'm just kidding. Anybody would like to go first on making comments for the Oakwind Estates subdivision?
Madam Chair, this is Adrian again. I'm sorry. We're still having technical difficulties on Zoom. So Commissioner Casanelli, I'm unable to promote you to have your own ability to speak. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand.
Gotta love technical difficulties.
And that'll be throughout the meeting too. I apologize.
That's okay. I'll just trust you to be my eyes and ears for Commissioner Casanelli when he wants to speak. Could we get the picture back of the landscape plan for the Oakwind Estates? That might help for a discussion. Since everybody else is jumping the gun to talk, I'll just say I don't have any huge concerns with it. I like that they've got the open space kind of in the central area. The biggest concern is kind of what I mentioned, that whenever you've got the higher density products like the townhomes on the south side, parking can become an issue quickly for me on those. I also don't love the shared drives when there's more than 3 houses sharing a shared drive for the townhomes. And I can't tell how many there are on that bottom right corner, but it looks like there's at least 4 townhome units that would be sharing that common drive. Could staff confirm that? I can't see that landscape plan very well.
Yeah, sorry, Alan T. from Bach. It looks like we have 5 townhouses sharing that drive down at the bottom right.
Thanks, Alan. That would be one of my requests, is that they would limit it to no more than 3 on those shared drives. Shared drives are always funky. They don't work super well. And then you've got people who try to do big turns, and then you get driveways that are blocked and people get mad. And then it's hard with trash enclosures and trying to get all the carts on the edge of the common drive. It always seems to be a topic of conversation for the commission. Those were one of my comments, though. Anybody else want to go? Commissioner Seal?
Yeah, same thing. The shared driveways are definitely cause for concern to me for similar reasons. They kind of cause their own traffic congestion on their own. One of the other things is just, I mean, the parking plan that was shown. To me, there just needs to be more parking in this. Where we have more homes. It would be nice to see, possibly some reconfiguration that allowed for more parking that was central to the townhomes that are in this, something that might even expand the MU or something like that. It seems like there's, obviously you want the density to be high, but with this high of density and the lack of parking dedicated to each one of the residents, as well as shared drives, in here on the bottom of either side, I just see that there's going to be, I think that there will be continual issues with parking and ability to get around in here that could translate into, emergency vehicles as well. So that's something that I would definitely want to see, is just more dedicated parking in here somewhere. Again, I'm not sure how they can accomplish that, but, maybe give up a couple of the residents, expand the MU in the middle, get some dedicated parking in there, something along those lines, as well as, eliminating or reorienting things to eliminate so many houses on the common drives. And I think your wording of no more than 3 is appropriate.
Thanks, Commissioner Seal. Yeah, I agree with your comment on parking too. It always makes me nervous. I would like to see more of a dedicated parking, because I know what it's driving through some of these new townhome products that have the 2-car garages and 2 driveways. Well, it gives 4 parking spots. People aren't parking in their garages. They're putting stuff in their garages and parking on the driveway. So you just see kind of rows of cars, which is unfortunate.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead. I think it was Alan.
Stephen Yearsley,
Oh,
sorry.
Commissioner Yearsley, go ahead.
So, I come back to this. There's 2 things major that I'm concerned. I think you're right on with the parking. I even think in the single family homes, again, these are going to be very small homes. I mean, lots of 3,500 square feet. You're going to have a mediocre sized home, very small yard. They're going to have their garages full of stuff as well, so they're going to be parking on the street and so I think overall the whole project, I'm concerned about parking, especially with the smaller lots that they have. The other concern that I have with, given the small lots, they have 15% open space, but man, I'd prefer to see 20, just because there's no place for these kids to go if they have kids, because there's no space at their house to actually go in their backyard or maybe play a little bit in their front yard, but there really is no place all they are going to be a sea of homes with very small yards. So I'd prefer to see closer to 20% open space in this area as well.
Thanks, Commissioner Yearsley. Yeah, I always like it when there's more open space than required. And I know that they are meeting, or they're exceeding the open space requirement with the park and the pathways that they have in here. I don't disagree that if you're living in that southern area, you're just kind of in a row of homes and cars, and there's not really a lot of area for playing. So, but I don't disagree with you there either. Commissioner McCarville or Commissioner Casanelli, any comments you'd like to make?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner McCarville.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the parking scenario. It just looks very compact down there. And, you know, with the landscape visual and everything, it looks pretty, but we know what's going to happen in real life. And so I'd like to see a little more parking somewhere.
Yeah. Commissioner Casanelli, I know you love talking about parking.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add since I'm jumping in late on this one. But those are what's been said is, you know, I would say, I would just ditto those comments.
So I'm not sure if anybody has some suggestions on how we would form that in a motion if we wanted to have them come back to us as a continuance and come back with another concept, or if we'd rather just make some conditions that sounds like there was agreement on eliminating the shared drive to no more than 3, but we would need to see some additional parking and ideally a little bit more open space. Anyone's thoughts on that? Do we want to look at a continuance, or are you happy to try and put some conditions in there that can help guide that?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Yearsley.
I think, I don't know if we need to hold it up for that. I think we can put some conditions in the approval and move it up to the city council for their review with those conditions.
Okay. Commissioner Seal, were you commenting?
Madam Chair, this is staff.
Go ahead, staff.
There's a couple things that are at play tonight that I want you to take under consideration. Is that what's before you tonight is a plat. What council will be acting on is a DA modification. So if that's something that you want, if these changes that you want to see with the plat need to be incorporated as part of the recommendation, as part of the DA modification, that council will take action on, because under the code, if it's just for a straight subdivision, the code only requires 10% open space. So it's hard for this body to say, provide 20% open space when they're already exceeding what code allows. So again, if that's something you want to see, more parking, more open space, loss of units, then I would recommend that you include that as part of some DA provisions that the council could take under consideration. Don't make them part of the plat condition.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that insight.
You're welcome.
So if anybody wants to take a stab at making a motion, certainly welcome to, but it sounds like a couple of the things we could do is move forward with recommendation of approval of the plat and then make a suggestion that council would take into consideration a request to consider more parking and open space as part of the DA.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Seal.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval of City Council of file number H 2020-0093 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 5th, 2020, with the following modifications: that the plat be approved, but we are recommending for the DA that no more than 3 residents on shared drives, that they provide plans for dedicated parking central to townhomes before City Council, and they work to increase the open space in the townhome area as possibly part of the parking.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Commissioner Yearsley seconded first. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, with that, we will move on to the public hearing for Goddard Creek Subdivision H-2020-0092 by Conger Group, and we'll begin with the staff report.
One second. Madam
Whenever
Chair,
you're ready, Bill.
We got to do some COVID disinfecting here while we switch staff members here, so bear with us.
No problem, thank you.
The sign of the times here. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Last item on the agenda this evening is the Goddard Creek project. This property is located on McMillan and North Goddard Street. This property was before this commission several times over the last couple of years and has quite a bit of history on it. The applications before you are a rezone and a preliminary plat. Of course, concurrently submitted were also a couple alternative compliance requests, or an alternative compliance request, a private street request, which have been approved at the director level, and then of course another development agreement modification in which this body could add some DA provisions, but ultimately the council will have the decision-making ability on that application as it moves forward through the hearing process. The subject site consists of 4.62 acres of land, currently zoned R4 in the city, and is located again at the northwest corner of McMillan and Goddard Creek Way. The adjacent land uses, we have to the west CC zoning and a self-storage facility. To the north, we have R4 zoning, although it is developed with a 170-unit multifamily development that was approved with the Loxa Falls PUD back in 2002. To the east, we have the Collector Street, Goddard Creek, and actually a common lot that abuts this property as well along the roadway there that is owned by the Loxa Falls Homeowners Association and is not part of this project. And then to the south is again McMillan Road, and then across the street from that is Bridge Tower, which is R4, and again, single-family detached homes. There's a lot of history on this site. So essentially in 2002, this property was approved as a use exception as part of the Loxa Falls PUD process, which allowed, although it was zoned R4 currently, it allows for office uses to develop on this site. There have been several attempts over the years to get something other than office uses entitled on this property. In 2017, there was a conditional use permit for another multifamily development on the site, in which ultimately the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend denial of the conditional use permit. And based on that recommendation of denial, they elected to withdraw that application prior to City Council taking action on that. And so therefore, Council did approve the CUP for the storage facility, the comp plan amendment to change it from the office to the mixed-use community designation that's currently on this property. And then the council also approved the DA to remain in effect for this site, which allows the office uses. In 2019, the most recent applications was before it was the Goddard Creek Townhome Subdivision. And that project was endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, it was controversial. I remember it was a split tie vote, came down at 3-2, if I remember, or something to that effect. You guys felt it was a great project, but it wasn't the right location. Ultimately, it went to City Council. City Council heard the neighbors, kind of reflected on the public record, looked at your guys' testimony and agreed that it wasn't the right time for this project, and ultimately denied that project. The primary difference between this project and that project at the time was that was a townhome unit development, and it had a total of 44 units. The plat before you tonight is actually a less dense project, and it has 10 fewer units, and rather than two-story townhomes, they're proposing single-story, single-family attached homes. You can see here, this is something new that we're trying to provide for this body and City Council. Is essentially staff was including maps as part of our presentation to you that shows current roadway improvements planned in the area and what other developments have been proposed within a couple mile radius of this proposed project. So that's what you see there. You can see, if all of you have gone to the new Costco, you'll see that 10 miles actually been widened to 5 lanes all the way up to Chinden now. So that those road projects are nearing completion. And then you can see all the other preliminary plats that have been approved in the area, including some final plats. So again, just try to give you a little bit more information as you guys deliberate on applications and keep you informed as to what's been approved in the area surrounding any future developments coming forward. So again, here's the proposed preliminary plat. Again, it's the applicant is proposing to rezone this from the R4 zone to the R15 zone, which was consistent with the previous approval. Again, this is a 34 lot, 50-foot age restricted development is proposed for this site. As I mentioned to you, it is a mixed-use community on the comprehensive plan, and typically we like to see three distinct land uses on a specific property. But given the fact that we have storage, multifamily, and farther to the west, some adjacent commercial development that are commercial properties that aren't fully developed yet, staff believes developing this with a single use as proposed still is consistent with that comp plan designation. And the proposed density on this particular project this evening is a gross density of 7.36 dwelling units to the acre, which falls right in between that density range of 6 to 15 dwelling units to the acre in the comprehensive plan. Access to this site is provided via a private street, which is on this map. You can see it says West Selway Rapids Lane, and that was meant to serve as access for the apartments, but also for the future office that was to develop. So staff didn't really anticipate residential developing on this site at that time when those apartments went in. And so now we're kind of stuck with a situation where we have a piece of property that is bound by an arterial on the south side and a common lot on the east side, where there is no real viability of having a public street connection to this development. And therefore the applicant is proposing a private street as part of the development. Now the UDC does try to discourage private streets for single family developments unless it's either a MU development or a gated community. And neither one of those are proposed for this project this evening. And then applicant has also submitted an alternative compliance to allow the two common driveways off the private streets, which have been approved by the director. Staff is also conditioned, because there is no gated community proposed for this site and there isn't really room to provide adequate gates and separations per the code. We have recommended a condition as part of a condition of approval as part of this project, that the applicant create some kind of, go through the alternative compliance with their final plat submittal and incorporate some decorative entry features at both of these entrance locations to almost mimic it like it is a 55 and older or a gated community, but just do it as a decorative entry feature rather than having an actual gate to provide access. Because this project is over 30 units, the fire department will require emergency access, and that is proposed to McDermott Road here, or excuse me, McMillan Road here. So they are meeting the fire department requirements. One of the unique characteristics of this particular project is the applicant's ability to work with the adjacent neighborhood. I think in the previous projects, there was quite a bit of opposition to both the townhome project and the previous multifamily project. And so this applicant was able to work with them. They made some concessions to the neighbors where they were asked to make this an age-restricted development, which they are amenable to. The residents were asked the developer to limit the height of these buildings to single stories, which they're amenable to. And then also there's a real parking issue with the apartment complex in this development. And so what the applicant's gone ahead and done is they've provided 16 additional guest parking here along the north side of the road here. And then where West Selway Rapids comes into the development, they're actually proposing to widen that to add some additional parallel parking along that roadway to offset some of those parking concerns that we've heard from the neighbors in the past. So I'd just like to go on the record and commend the applicant for stepping up and trying to make those concessions and try to address some of those concerns they've heard with previous applications. This development, as you know, is under 5 acres in size. So the UDC, except for the 25-foot wide landscape buffer along West McMillan Road, there really is no requirement for usable open space. But as you can see here, the applicant is trying to include some detached sidewalks and some parkways to count as some qualified open space. And then they're also providing a central open space and a covered picnic area for the residents to use as part of this development. One of staff's recommendation is, because this will be an age-restricted development or proposed to be one, we wanted to make sure whatever, and it's private streets, and our private street standards don't require sidewalks on those streets, but the applicant is providing that on the internal street section. We wanted to make sure that they enhance the pedestrian connectivity into the site by not only extending the sidewalk from the Selway apartments from the north, but also delineate pedestrian walkways through the private roads to guide citizens and residents to the use of that open space. So in our staff report, we've required the applicant to provide us a pedestrian circulation plan with their final plat application that shows an interconnected pathway that comes off of McMillan Road may be able to have some crossings. If you can see my cursor here, have some crossings that ties into the sidewalk that runs in front of the guest parking, and then have another crossing that heads east that ties pedestrians and residents to this open space, and then also do the same along the north boundary, just to kind of get more of an enhanced pedestrian connectivity and safety aspect through the development. Applicant did provide sample elevations, so you can see here that there's a mix of siding materials and different variations in roof lines. Some of these units are built throughout our community and been very successful by the client. I just let the commission know that any attached unit such as these requires design review from staff prior to getting building permit submittal. So they have been a condition to do so. Staff did look at the public record before tonight's festivities, and we did note that there was one person that sent written testimony in. If you had a chance to look at the public record, you can see staff actually responded in an email and explained the merits of the development, and it seemed like we were able to change her mind of the development, going from maybe proposing a denial to her in support of what the applicant was proposing to do. And staff also received an email late this afternoon from the applicant, in which they've read through the staff report, and they are in agreement with all staff's conditions. So with that, planning and zoning staff is recommending approval of the rezone and the preliminary plat, and we humbly stand for any questions from you.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Casanelli.
Bill, the parking, I've got a concern there. Let me back up just a little bit. Did the applicant not propose a gated community? And the reason why I'm asking is, to me, some of the parking, I mean, I like that they're adding in extra parking, but the concern would be that every time we've looked at stuff in this area here, historically, one of the biggest objections is the parking situation at the Selway and how it spills over into, it goes east of Goddard Creek. I can recall a lot of these comments. So it seems to me that the parking that they're adding in, what's to stop people from the Selway Apartments using some of those spots?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the commission, there really isn't. I mean, the applicant has not proposed gates. Certainly, they're going to have their own CC&Rs and how they're going to control that. I think maybe the applicant should probably address that concern. But from our standpoint, and looking at this, these are private streets, so technically they could restrict people from driving on them, not necessarily West Selway Rapids Lane, because that's access to the apartments, but certainly anything that connects into that and that looped road, they could sign that as private property and not for use for the apartment complex. So that's something that they're going to have to manage and determine how they're going to deter people from using that parking area.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner Seal.
On the looped road here, is there, is parking available on any of that? Or is that, it doesn't look like it's the 30-foot, no.
Yep.
So
Madam Chair, members of the commission, there is not. It's the minimum width of 24 feet per the city standards. So they do not, they're going to have to put up no parking signs to make sure no one's parking and blocking that roadway for the fire department.
Follow-up question on that. On the shared driveways, you said that they already have director approval for the shared driveways. Does that mean that's something we can't condition, considering we just conditioned it on the last application?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, there's still a DA, so there's still some wiggle room there for you. All I'm stating is, as far as a driveway access via common driveway is allowed, as open to that. So if you wanted to restrict the number of units, that's something you could do as part of a recommendation to be included in it as a DA provision. But as far as allowing units to take access off a common driveway, yes, the director has approved the 2 common drives.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, is the applicant here? It looks like we've got Heath Clark on.
Hi, Commissioners. Heath Clark for the applicant, 251 East Front Street in Boise. And I am going to turn on my little presentation here. Okay, so as Bill mentioned, this is a project that I would say has kind of been through the ringer. It's got a pretty decent history to it, and that's always fun to kind of look back and see where things have been and how they've gotten there. As Bill mentioned, this project is on off of McMillan between 10 Mile and Linder. As you can see, it's one of the last properties on that square mile to develop, and it's down the street from Rocky Mountain High School, and it hits what I'm going to call the we'll call it the big box shopping quadruple double. It's got Walmart, Costco, Fred Meyer, and Winco all right in the immediate vicinity. Like I say, it's been through the history, the previous applications with the apartments, and then the last iteration with the 44 unit project. P&Z had recommended approval of that project, and then it went down at council due to, as I understand it, due to traffic and parking concerns. So that's been a lot of what we've tried to pay attention to. So with this plan, again, it's a reduction from the prior applications, 44 units down by 10 to 34. There is additional parking, as Bill mentioned. So in addition to the 2 in the garage, 2 on each driveway, we've provided 15 internal stalls on the south along Apgar. It's easy for me to say. I've struggled with that all day. Apgar Creek Loop. And then in addition, to kind of address what Commissioner Casanelli had mentioned, we have provided an additional 8 up on West Selway Lane. That's in addition to widening that by 8 feet. So we've tried to be very responsive to what we've heard as being that concern in terms of parking in that area. We have proposed attached housing with single level, trying to be responsive to the neighbors again. And again, I think this is important. It's an age-restricted community. This applicant, the landowner, Schmidt Investments, has experience with that. And that will help to further address, I think, any of the concerns about traffic and parking. Is with age-restricted communities, you see less traffic generation and less need for parking. As you can see, you saw this, Bill showed you some of the attached product. Again, single level, and 2+2 on the parking on each unit. In terms of neighbor interaction, I need to give some credit to Laren Bailey with Conger Management Group. He did he put on the Kevlar and went to the neighborhood meetings and talked to the neighbors. He did have had conversations with those folks. There was 8 people that attended the initial one. They did have a follow-up neighborhood meeting to discuss or to look at the proposed elevations, and a couple people showed up to that one. Overall, it's our understanding that the neighbors have appreciated the concept of a senior living approach with the associated reduction in traffic, and with the belt and suspenders approach to adding parking. Talk a little bit about some of the solutions that we've worked on with staff, just to kind of help you know how this has gone and the collaboration that's gone on there. So again, we worked with staff to arrive at an alternative compliance approval for the private street. And I think Bill's gone into detail on that to a level that I don't need to really deal with that too much. I will just say that we are in agreement with staff's recommendation of installing pillars and faux gates on the entries. So over on West Selway. So they'd be at each of the entries to the project. Going along with that, we will be installing the pedestrian amenities that Bill mentioned. So that includes a sidewalk connection at the western entry over at West Selway. There will be pedestrian treatment there at each entry, also down at the shared driveway to McMillan, and also at the open area park area here on the east. There will also be, as Bill mentioned, a sidewalk connection on the south to the McMillan Road meandering sidewalk that you can see on the bottom of this drawing. As I mentioned, with parking at an age-restricted community, they tend to be overparked. Again, we have provided the 15 internal parking spaces and 8 at West Selway Rapids Lane. And again, we've committed to widening that lane to address any fire concerns. In response to Commissioner Casanelli's question, I think my response would be very similar to Bill's. We don't expect overparking through here, but it is private property. So if there is an issue, this little HOA would be able to sign that and help address that. But again, we don't expect that it's going to have that type of problem. I'm trying to keep this easy for everybody. So on the staff report, we are in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report. We appreciate the work that Bill and Joe have done on this. Appreciated Joe reaching out to the public in response to the questions. This does provide a variety of housing types in an area that already has a pretty abundant mix of uses. And we think it's checked all the boxes. And we would ask for an approval tonight. So with that, happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for that. Any questions for the applicant? I'll actually start with one question. So I know that the neighbors seem to be happier about the age-restricted units, but it seems like we've been having a lot of the age-restricted units coming into Meridian lately. And I know for resale value, it can be tricky because there's only a limited population that can buy those types of product. Are you set on having the age-restricted community?
Commissioner Holland, I would just say, yeah, that's the model here. And, you know, it's my understanding of the market, and I know that this applicant feels the same way, is that there's a really significant demand for age-restricted communities throughout the area. So yes, that is the plan, and that is been what we've discussed with staff, and that's what we would proceed to do.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Casanelli.
Heath, could you go to, it looks like it's slide number 5 with the elevations. Thank you. I'm gonna ask, only because we've been down this road before with the applicant. Are we talking, are these all meant to have full eaves all the way around the homes?
Mm-hmm. Madam Chair, Commissioner Casanelli, this is a different client, not the same client, not the same model. And yes, there are eaves on this model. Okay. Sorry, I was confused then. It's okay. It's okay. It's a small community, and I'm here a lot for certain clients, so I get it.
Chair.
Thanks, Heath. Commissioner Seal.
Just a couple of questions on the since there's going to be faux gates in there, will that be posted as private drive? That will be posted. That's my question.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, yes, that would be posted as a private drive.
The follow-up question to it is, why not real gates? If you're going to go through trying to make doing something elaborate to provide that it looks like a gate, why not just put gates in?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, it really is a matter of room. You're gonna end up with stacking distance questions. Those gates would be opening in front of lots. If they go internal, they'd be opening up on the Selway. If they were going to go external, it doesn't make sense. The faux gates you know, they're much more effective practically given the size constraints, and they still, I think, convey the point, which is that it's a private community. It's not a through street, not a place that, you know, folks are going to necessarily head into. So we're using visual cues rather than the physical barriers.
Final question. Do you have any elevations showing the park area with the picnic shelter, what that might look like? I tend to agree with what's in the staff report, where you have all of this going on and then you have a big open area and you're going to put a picnic shelter in it. So it seems kind of lackluster considering what's going in here.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, I think we have a condition of approval to show detail on that, if I remember correctly, and Bill might be able to jump in there, but I think that they asked for more detail on that when we come back at final plat. And I think that would be typical for that. I mean, we are certainly open to the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendations on that. But we'd be happy to provide more detail as this goes, as would be typical.
Thank you.
Okay, any last questions for Heath before we open up for public testimony? Seeing none, Heath, we'll be right back with you. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed in to testify?
Madam Chair, we do have some people signed in. Dan and Penny Fisher are on the line with us. Fisher's, one moment. And no one, while I'm transferring them over, Madam Chair, no one is in-house, so we don't have anybody here to raise their hand.
Okay. All right, and it looks like whoever's labeled as Fishers is over on the panelist side now. So if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and then feel free, you've got 3 minutes for us. And you'll have to unmute yourself, or the clerks can help you with that too if you need. It looks like you're talking, but I'm not hearing anything from our side. Is that just me? Is anybody else able to hear him?
I'm not hearing anything.
We can't.
I don't hear him.
There is an option. I'm not sure if you can hear us, but there is an option that you can call in. It looks like you're still trying to talk to us, but if you go to the bottom, you can switch to using phone audio. Sometimes that helps if your computer's not working. So right down on the bottom left corner where it's next to the mute button, if you click the up arrow, there's this option that says switch to phone audio if you want to try that. But I'm sorry, we're not able to hear you right now. Adrian, is there anyone else that we want to try while we're trying to figure out how to help these guys?
Chair, Penny and Dan Fisher were the only two that signed up with a wish to testify.
It looks like they're still trying to talk, but we can't hear them.
I'm going to try one thing, Madam Chair, if I could here.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk. I always hate when technology doesn't work with us the way we want it to.
Penny or Dan, if you could try to talk again, and we can see if we could try to hear you. Madam Chair, I've tried all the tricks up my sleeve, and we still can't hear them in chambers either.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do here either.
Yeah, I wonder if they're muted on their end.
And it's Penny and Dan, is that what you said?
Yes, correct.
If you guys can hear us at all, if there's another way that you can call into the meeting, we would love to hear from you. Adrian, do we have a call-in number that they can try?
Do have the number right here, Penny and Dan. The phone number to call in is 1-669-900-6833. The ID number is 890-6834-1242. I do see that you have found the ability to raise your hand, but you are unmuted, so you would be allowed to talk now, and we still cannot hear you. If you want to try calling in with the information I just gave you, we can try that way.
Looks like they hung up from there, so we'll see. Oh, no, we promoted them over to panelists one more time.
Madam Chair, we're trying to pull out all the stops here to try to get them set up.
Yeah, Dan and Penny, we still can't hear you. I'm sorry. Can you hear us? You can hear us. Do you have the option to call in on the number that Adrian gave you? Okay, it looks like they're trying to call in, so we're just going to wait another minute for you.
Can you hear us now?
We can, and if you could go ahead and mute your computer so that way we don't get the feedback, that would be great. But we can hear you.
Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you for your patience. We really appreciate it. Dan Fisher, 2382 West Apgar Creek Drive in Meridian. And we're the last house on Apgar Creek before Goddard Creek. So we're the closest house to the development. Overall, I like the 55 and older concept, and I really appreciate that and think that that's definitely headed in the right direction. My primary concerns are still parking. I don't think that, I think that the parking spots that are going to be on Silway Rapids would be immediately gobbled up by vehicles from Selway. So I don't think that that would make even a dent in the parking issue. My second concern is the back of the units that face Goddard Creek and McMillan. They don't have any real detail to them other than some variation in colors. But there's no stone, there's no real textures, no beams, anything like that to make them a little more attractive. I think that might be a good idea. If you look at what was proposed and for the mini storage, and then you look at what was actually built, they're not even identifiable between what we were shown in drawings versus what was built. It's horrible. The corrugated steel right on the outside, the nothing but stucco and cinder block. It's one of the worst looking mini storages in the city. So I think we would really be benefited by sprucing this up a little bit.
My name is Penny Fisher, also 2382 West Apgar Creek Drive. One of the concerns that we do have, like Dan said, is the parking. We do have the overfill in front of our home, and probably 9 times out of 10, it is not, it's just from Selway. So I do worry if you guys require like the gated, that they would have to remove those extra parking spots in the top. And that was a selling point for a lot of the people that we spoke with, is that would remove some of it. We like the 55 and older age because it didn't affect the school population. And that was one of the big things. This would, because it would be 55 and older, we wouldn't have the worry of the overpopulation of the schools. We do feel like there would be less of a traffic, but again, the biggest concern is the parking, and then just making it fit over the aesthetics overall. Is we do like the stone, like Dan said, but we want to make sure that it goes through. And then if we do rezone it, we want to make sure that there's a contingency that if this project for any reason does not go through, that the zoning does not go through as well. That it would be only contingent for this and only this project.
Thank you, Dan and Penny. Are there any questions for Dan and Penny while they're on the line with us? We greatly appreciate you guys making the time to join us tonight, and sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks for calling back in, and glad we got you on the line. So we appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Adrian, do we have anybody else signed in to testify?
We didn't have anybody else sign in with a wish to testify, Madam Chair.
Okay, it looks like there might be one other person in the attendee panel, but if they would like to testify, now is the time to raise your hand. If not, we will hand it back over to Heath if he's got any closing comments he'd like to make. Heath, looks like the floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Great. Okay. Once again, for the record, Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street, representing the applicant. Thanks to the Fishers for your comments. Just to respond, with regard to the appearance, these are duplexes, so they will have to go through design review. So the city will have another bite at the apple to ensure that everything looks appropriate. With regard to the question of whether the proposal would ride through with any changes, I guess, in terms of who the applicant is, this is a development agreement modification, which means that there are conditions of approval that the zoning is tied to. So if there was going to be a change in the project, there would have to be a development agreement modification in order to make that happen. With regard to the parking, understand the concern. It sounds like it's been something folks have been living with. When we are putting those additional 8 stalls and widening Selway by 8 feet, we think that we're helping to address an existing problem and not one that's created by this project, which is, we believe, is going to be adequately parked, and it's parked well in excess of what code requires. So we have the 2+2 at each unit, and then in addition to that, the 15 stalls on the south. So we're hoping that, to be a good neighbor on that front and help to address the concern that the Fishers have shared. With regard to some of the comments before, I just wanted to circle back on those. With regard to the amenity, Commissioner Seal, it's condition 3A that I was trying to think of that requires us to come back with details of site amenities. Picnic shelter is a typical amenity for a 55 plus community. I mean, obviously you're not going to put a tot lot in, but appreciate the comments there, and that's something that we'll take to heart as we put together that final list of site amenities at final plat. And then this didn't come up in our conversation, but with regard, I heard Commissioner Seal ask about the number of lots on the common driveways. Just to circle up on that, so the maximum, as I understand code, is 6. There's only 3 on each of these. So we've tried to be mindful of that. I think that the city is looking at a code amendment to cap it at 4. We'd still be below that. So we think that we're not only within the 4 corners of the code as it exists, but as the intent of future code amendments. So with that, I think I've hammered this to death, and I'd be happy to follow up on anything that you've got left.
Thanks, Heath. Any final questions for Heath before we move to deliberation?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
just in looking at the drawings that are out here, it basically shows that there's 4 off the common drives. That's what I'm looking at, and that's what I'm seeing. So If it is just 3, then that's essentially what we're aiming for is, I mean, just an overall reduction in the shared driveways because they seem to be everywhere and they're always an issue, no matter if there's just 2 of them on there. So having more than 3 seems to be a really big issue.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, if you can see my cursor, and I'm not sure that you can, but you can see that this, I think would be what you're referring to as the 4th. That would take access from the street. Same would be true down here on West Apgar. So those actually take access from the street. The remaining 3 take access from the common drive.
Heath, one follow-up to that. I think one of the other challenges we always see, and I know it's only one day a week, but where people put their trash carts, because that always tends to be an issue. They put them on somebody else's driveway and then there's problems getting around them. Do you guys have another designated area for trash enclosure or anything like that to try and help with the trash carts?
The trash company, they will, for extra people, will pick up.
Okay, Madam Chair, Commissioner, actually just Madam Chair. So we have talked to the garbage companies about that. There are solutions to deal with that. So for a nominal fee, folks can have it picked up at the door or at the garage if that ends up becoming an issue. Otherwise, it would be at the street as typical.
Yeah, I think that that goes back to the challenge about the shared drives, because I don't imagine the garbage company wanting to go all the way up the shared drive to go pick up carts, but.
Yeah, Madam Chair, in that case, they go out to the street. So folks would bring them out to the street.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's where we always get back to the challenges with the common drives, because they stack up so quick on those streets because there's not really a good place to put them if there's not a driveway to put against them.
I understand.
Okay, thanks, Heath.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Heath?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Heath, on those 8 spots up on Selway Rapids, are you conceding those to the apartments?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Casanelli, I don't know how necessarily, I mean, we're not giving up ownership of those parking spaces by any means. They are going to be external in many ways to the project. And so I expect that there's going to be lots of different folks, including folks from the apartments, that might use them from time to time. What we're trying to do is to try to help alleviate the existing problem there. We think we're going above and beyond by doing that. Saying that we're just giving them up to the apartments, I think that might be overstating it, but we're providing additional parking there that might be used by them.
Okay.
Any other questions for Heath? Hearing none, thank you, Heath. And I would be open to a motion to close the public hearing for Goddard Creek Subdivision H-2020-0092 to move deliberation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Casanelli, seconded by Commissioner Seal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the floor is yours, commissioners. Anyone want to go first?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner McCarville.
Oh, our little map disappeared. I tend to like what they've done. It seems to be pretty night and day from things we've seen. They've obviously taken into consideration a lot of the concerns of this area, including the 8 external parking spots. And I think the additional parking close to where those shared drives are will be a big help, all except for trash day. And the addition of the sidewalks and everything. And I do like the age restricted aspect to this, because it just reduces many of the concerns of projects that have been in the past.
Thanks, Commissioner McCarville. My comments in general, I'll jump in next. I I like the loop itself. I remember we've talked about this specific lot many times, and it's kind of an awkward infill piece now, the way that it developed. And originally it was supposed to be offices, but it doesn't really fit for office. So I think what they're proposing here makes sense. I'm not opposed to the way that development is. I appreciate that they've done some extra parking. I appreciate the little pocket park green space that they put in there. My biggest challenge are those common drives. I would prefer to not see more than 3 houses sharing that. And I know it, even though that 4th house is kind of on the edge of it, it still looks like it's part of that shared drive to me because it's connected to where that curb cut is. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to alleviate that, but it is always a concern to me because I always hate those shared drives. They just don't seem to function very well to me. My other comment in general is I really don't love all the 55 and older subdivisions we've been approving because there seems to be a lot of them. And not that there's anything wrong with having an age restricted community, but it does challenge the marketability of those properties in the future if it gives a very narrow window of who could buy those properties and what they could be reused for in the future if there's resale. So it's always challenging to me because if our demographics change at some point and we end up having a bunch of communities with 55 and older restrictions, it just seems like a challenge to the market, but maybe that's a moot point and maybe there is more demand for that than I know of. But that's just a general comment, not something I would feel to take out of there, just something I wanted to put on the record. Commissioner Seal, do you want to go next? And you're muted, I think.
Nope, I'm unmuted. I should be unmuted.
Okay, yep, we can hear you now.
I echo some of your statements in there. I mean, adding the extra parking, that to me, that's above and beyond. I mean, that's addressing, directly a problem that's been brought to their attention. So I really appreciate that. I do like the general layout of it. I'm not a person that, would probably be looking for a townhouse type community. That said, there is, obviously some demand for them. So especially kind of the townhome communities that are, more or less kind of maintenance free. So, the less common area, kind of the better for some of the 55 and older communities seems to be something that they actually want instead of having, huge parks and parkways and things like that. One thing I think they should definitely consider is like a central trash collection site. I mean, that would make me feel a little better about the shared driveways that are in there. Unfortunately, one of the places I think it would land is possibly where they've added extra parking spots. So, so I'm a little divided on that for sure. I mean, if there was a place to put, central trash collection, they could take up a couple of parking spots. I think that would alleviate a lot of problems that they're going to run into come trash collection day. So, and those, especially with the smaller streets and not allowing any parking on them, to have all the, have the trash collection receptacles out there kind of presents some safety issues for me as we go down that road. So, I mean, I would like to have them consider central trash collection. And I still think that no more than 3 residents on shared driveways is, especially considering, again, the density in here is more than fair.
Thanks, Commissioner Seal. Commissioner Yearsley, Commissioner Casanelli, any comments? Actually,
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Yearsley.
I guess my biggest concern, and I don't know how to address it, is I don't like the private driveways. I'm on the board of our HOA, and we have quite a few private driveways, and they become quite an expense that they have to maintain. I'm not going to say we shouldn't have the private driveways, but I would like to have the applicant reach out to the homeowners association and at least provide them some guidance on what they should be doing for maintenance and storing money away for future improvements as those roads deteriorate. So that'd be my biggest concern. And so that's all I have.
Great comment. Thanks, Commissioner Yearsley. Any other comments out there?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Casanelli.
I'm pretty much everything. I'm going to kind of echo what everybody else has said, but I'll just throw my comments out. I kind of agree with you with maybe there's been a lot of age restriction going in, but from what I hear, there's a demand for it, and I think in this piece, it will help alleviate the traffic. So, you know, and there's some places that I've seen around town where I think it really fits, and I think this is one place where the age restriction is a plus, because that's every time we've heard, you know, every time when this parcels come up, the traffic and parking have been, I think, the number one things. But if I kind of put a comment out there to maybe address the Fishers, and I don't know if they have spoken at one or two of the previous planning and zoning meetings. I think one time it was either a 2 or 3 story proposed units going in there, and they didn't want 3 stories looking down on their backyard. I think as far as you know, these are all single story. They're not even going to see the back of the homes. Maybe a patio cover or 2, but you know, most of it won't be popping up above a 6-foot fence, you know, at the angle that they'll have. So I don't think that that's an issue. I've got the same concerns about the private, not necessarily the private street. Those were great comments that Commissioner Yearsley addressed. So I think we do got to make sure that there's a clause in there for the homeowners association to be well aware of what their requirements are. But those, the way I'm looking at it and the way I see it, you can kind of spin it how you want. I'm counting 4 homes each off of those on those shared driveways. And the other thing, the comment on with trash, in a typical single family development with shared driveways, there's a little bit more space on the homes that are up front, because they've got a full width yard with just a driveway. So there's a little bit more room where you can put the trash receptacles. With the attached homes here, I think most of the frontage is going to be driveway, and there's going to be very little room to put those. So that is a concern of mine as well. I don't know, short of having a common collection area, how you deal with that, but I think that is going to be a problem once a week, every week. And those are my comments.
Thanks,
But in overall, I'm in favor of it. I think it fits, because it doesn't sound like an office development has come along, and I think this is the best we've seen yet. It fits. I think it just needs some tweaking. Oh, and one other comment too. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Steele. I'd like to see a little bit something more in that common area, given that it's 55 and over. And a picnic area is nice. Maybe just a thought, just a comment for the developer, the applicant. Maybe like even a shuffleboard or something else in there to give the residents something to do.
Okay, so just to recap the things we've talked about, comments about the private drive, that they should be putting in extra, that they should put some resources forward with the HOA towards helping with that, and that would be a suggestion. I don't know if that's something we can condition or not, but I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of private driveways either. I'm not sure what we can do there if we can make a condition on that, but.
This is Stephen. I don't know if we condition it, but I would, appreciate the applicant to let the HOA give them some guidance, because as before on Planning and Zoning Commission, we've heard a lot of people talk about their infrastructure failing within the HOAs, and no one knows what they should be doing to help make those last longer. So at least providing some guidance, from the engineer to the HOA, it would be helpful. So like I said, I don't know if it needs to be a condition, but just have them, if they would just provide that guidance for them.
Good comments. The shared drives are a challenge, it sounds like, to almost all of us. So I'd like to see us restrict the number of those or have a requirement that they need to put in a parking, or not a parking, a trash enclosure, but I'd rather see the elimination of one or two of those lots on there to make it easier instead. I will leave it open if anybody wants to try and attempt making a motion on this one.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Seal.
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2020-0092 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of November 5th, 2020, with the following modifications: that no more than 3 residents are allowed on shared driveways, and that the applicant consider central trash collection enclosure because of the small width of the streets and the common driveways.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second? Or any discussion?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second by Commissioner McCarville. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. With that, I believe that's all we've got on the agenda unless staff has anything else. So we've got one more motion for the night.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Have a great night, all.